In this tutorial, we will create a simple workflow that will show you or give you a brief introduction about JsWorkflows app. The workflow we are going to create is stated or described in our documentation, specifically in your first workflow section. And the workflow code is shown there, and it basically is triggered by a Shopify order paid webhook, and it sends a simple message to Slack channel, and the message is new paid order and the order name, the total amount, and the currency. So this workflow will give us an introduction to create workflows and connect to external resources like channel. And before creating the workflow, since this workflow involves connecting to Slack, we connect our app to Slack. To do that, we go to settings and we go to the OAuth section and click connect to service and select Slack. For this example, we only need Slack messaging and channel, and we select the required scopes. In the name, provide some name that you to help us remember, identify this channel, this connection, sorry. And then let's give it Slack. And the handle is JavaScript friendly label to get the token for this connection. And let's give it a handle my Slack. And then click connect. This opens your Slack account. And for this example, my workspace is this, and then we allow the connection. Now the connection is successful, and we will see our connection here. The handle is my Slack, and the list of scopes granted are this. Before creating the workflow, let's go to our Slack account and invite this connection or our app to that to the test channel. And this is our the test Slack account, and the test channel I've already created is this channel, and we need to invite our app we have just connected, and type invite and click add apps to this channel. And the app we just added is the JsWorkflows app, and we add. Now it's added to this channel, so we expect to receive message whenever our workflow sends message to Slack. And that's shown here. Our app, JsWorkflows app, is invited or has joined to this channel. Okay, let's go back to our home page and click create workflow. We have different options to create workflows. The first is using templates. We already have production ready templates that you can use without modifying the code. Or if you want to modify them or customize them, you can change the code and add your own features in it. We have different templates, ready-made templates here. Another option is using AI assistants like Cloud or ChatGPT, or using AI CLI tools like Codex or Cloud Code. Our app has an MSP server that you can use to create workflows or manage your own workflows. And if you click one of these, you'll see an instruction on how to connect our MCP to the AI assistants. Another option is you can request us to set up a free setup of your first workflow. You can tell us in detail what you would like to create, and then we'll help you build that workflow without any additional fee. So you are encouraged to contact us with any workflow that you think might be helpful. Yeah, we're happy to help. And the fourth option is using custom workflow, building custom workflow using JavaScript. and you can use different triggers for that workflow. The first is Shopify webhooks or HTTP triggers, schedule trigger that you can schedule workflows to start in the future and some time interval and so on. Another option is email trigger that you can send email with attachment to your workflow so that the workflow can use that attachment file for as a data input. For example, you can send CSV attachments to your email, and when the workflow receives that email, it uses the CSV data as an input. And another option is using Shopify Flow actions as a trigger. So for this example, we are going to use Shopify webhook, specifically order paid webhook. So we select Shopify webhook, and we give a name to this workflow, which is, for example, we can say Slack. And you also have an option to use tags, to add tags to help me identify and tag or group this workflow. For example, we can add Slack and order, and also you can add notes to help you remember what this workflow is about when you revisit this workflow in the future. And we leave it as empty, and we select the trigger, the webhook trigger, which is order paid. Scroll down, you'll see orders paid webhook. We select this, and we have an option to view a sample webhook payload for this topic or order paid topic. And this is the shape of the payload that our workflow would receive as a trigger when an order is paid. So our workflow will use this as an input to process this input and send a notification to Slack. So we'll save. Now our workflow is saved. Let's open the code. This code is just the default workflow code that we added to help you understand how our workflow code works, and also added some API or tools that are used for commonly used for workflows. Since we are just using the workflow or create workflow that's stated in our documentation or in your first workflow section, we copy that code and paste it or replace the default code. And this is the code, the workflow code that we are going to use, and this basically has a JavaScript class called workflow, and it has two steps. The first step is a mandatory step and called first method, is a mandatory method called start, which marks the start of the workflow. And for this example, it has 3 inputs, and also it always has 3 inputs, but for this example, the data inputs is the webhook data or the order paid webhook data, the payload, and the headers is the webhook headers. So whenever an order is paid, this workflow receives a payload, and that payload is an input to this method or this step, the start step. So that method extracts the order ID, name, total price, and currency, and it schedules using the API called schedule next step after 5 minutes to run a next action called notify Slack, which is defined here as a method, and that new action will have a payload of this, which is order ID, order name, total, and currency. So what this start doing is it receives a webhook payload, which is order paid, extracts ID, name, price, and currency, and schedules the next step called notify Slack with this payload and to run after 5 minutes. So our next step, the notify Slack step, will have this input payload, which is passed from the previous step, is as a payload, And the first thing what it does is it extracts the Slack channel, the Slack token, which is the connection we created earlier, and it had the handle my Slack, so it's using the same handle my Slack. So it extracts the token. If there is an error, then it will return, because there is no point running the workflow if there is no token. So for this example, 5 minutes is a bit long, so we change this to 10 seconds, so that that's the next step after receiving a trigger would run after 10 seconds. And also another thing that we need to change is, because this notify Slack step is sending a message to Slack to this channel, but this is just some placeholder random channel. We need to get the correct channel by going to our Slack channel, which is this channel, and copying the ID from the address bar, and then replacing this with the correct ID. So what this is doing is, this will send the text message, new paid order, the order name, total, and the currency. And let's save this. Now it's saved. Since workflows needs to be tested first, needs to be verified that's working before activating it and running it on live data, we have an option to test it using sample payload that I have showed you earlier when we created the webhook trigger. And this sample payload is specifically for order paid webhook topic. And we can use this sample in test data. We can also change this to something different. For example, if you want to use real order ID, you can change the ID here or the ID here. But this test data is the sample payload that is used when we create some specific Shopify webhook. So this is sample web payload for order paid webhook. So we are using this payload for this test. So we run this by clicking run test. So this is a live event that will show us the steps. For example, the first step is the start, which marks the start of the step, and after 10 seconds we will see the next step, which is notify Slack step, which was scheduled after 10 seconds. Now the second step, or notify Slack, has been triggered, which means this message is sent to our channel, new order and order name, and this message. So let's check to our test Slack channel by going to Slack, and as you can see, we have received a new message, new order number 999, and the amount is this, and currency is this. So we can now it's working. You can also activate this now to see with real live data. So to do that, let's go to orders. Let's see go to our drafts and take one of the draft orders and mark it as paid. Now we'll see our app getting our workflow receiving start. It looks like we haven't created an order. Oh yeah, create an order. Now we have created an order, so we will see a new event, starts event. Yeah, we see that means we have received Shopify webhook. You can see the real header here. That's the webhook header, and then after 10 seconds we'll see the notify Slack step. Yep, so that means in our Slack we have received a message. Yes, we can see we have received the second message, which says the order is 1001 and the amount is 3,212.09 cents USD. So we can check if this is the correct message by going back to the order detail. And this order we have just received, we have just created, and the order name is 1001. This is correct, and the total amount is 35505. Oh, sorry, that's 312. Okay, what's the? Okay. Yep, it's here in USD. Because the currency here is in Canada dollar, so in USD, the total amount is 312.09 USD, as shown here. So what happened is, when a trigger or a webhook trigger is received, our first step or start step was executed, and it scheduled the next step called notify Slack after 10 seconds. So we received start, we executed the start step, and it shows the headers of the webhook trigger. And for example, the Shopify topic, the web topic is order paid, and the web ID is this. And then after 10 seconds, our next step or notify step Slack was executed. We can add a message here, a console message, to show what payload we have received. We can say payload data and logout data and save. Now let's create another order. Let's go to drafts and mark this as paid to create an order, or to mark this as paid order. Review draft order, save, and then mark as saving it, marks as paid. So we expect to see now a start step here with the payload data. Let's click and see. As you can see, this is the payload data we have just received. For example, the name of the order is it's order 1002, and the total amount in US dollar is 704.23 USD. So we expect to see this detail in our Slack message after the notify Slack steps already is executed. And if you go to the Slack channel, we can see that the details of the new order. So yeah, to summarize, we have created a simple workflow that is triggered by a Shopify webhook, specifically the order paid topic. And whenever an order is paid, our webhook is triggered and receives the order detail data as a payload. And our workflow always starts with a step called start, or which is a JavaScript class method. And it has these three inputs: the trigger data, the trigger input payload, and the header detail. And for the example, the header is the Shopify webhook header, and the API is the built-in API tools. For example, this is an API that schedules the next step. So it extracts some order details such as ID, name, total price, and currency, and it schedules another step, or which is the notify Slack step, which is another class method. and after 10 seconds that step will be executed with this as an input, which is an input to that method. So what is different or unique about this workflow is the steps or the class methods are independent executions. They are independent instances. So for example, if you have some global variable updated here, so that global variable cannot be accessed. I mean, the updated value of that global variable cannot be accessed here, because this step and this step are independent instances. They start with a new instance, so they run independently. So the reason why we're doing that is because you might have a very long running workflow. For example, it might take days. For example, if you want to schedule the next step after 10 days. So if you run some class as ordinary methods, that means that class needs to run for 10 days, so it's impractical. So if you schedule it for 10 days, our workflow will stop the execution of this instance and then schedule another step, which is the next step, after 10 days. So there will be an alarm, and that will be triggered after 10 days. And exactly at the start time, the next step will be executed as a new instance. So this is basically what our workflow is about. I hope this is clear, and thank you.